What we do know is that there's cultural demographics around who would use this unit. And in California, our predominance of renter, the renter avatar is a Hispanic family, right? Okay. The interesting thing that we found is that these families already live this way. They already live with the income and expense sharing. And in fact, what you'll find in a larger family group is that they may live in, 2 or more adjacent units in an apartment building, or they live in one part of the family lives here, and then the next, building over, another part of the family lives, because again, the social networks are strong that keep them local, but they obviously have to find housing that's both affordable and coherent with their family group. So we'll actually, import that family out of 2 units to go into our 1 unit. And of course, if you're a family, you would always prefer to have 1 unit that you could live in, particularly when you have the 2-car garage and new systems and that kind of thing, right? What I do say where we locate is in these low and lower middle income neighborhoods. And there's no study, I think, that I know of that does a comprehensive survey of where these neighborhoods are. We just happen, as part of our business, to know these neighborhoods, and we do search for them. And so we will find pockets or nodes of these demographic concentrations that also happen to align in many cases with the income, concentrations, right? And so, like I had a question yesterday, a guy was like, okay, so Scott, you're not in the central business district or the center core of, say, Long Beach. How far out do you have to go to reach this demographic and income mix? And as I answered his question, it dawned on me that we actually don't do it that way. I mean, one, California and Southern California, LA is sort of spread out in multiple urban nodes. And so that the neighborhoods, the cultural mix and the income demographics also are nodal themselves, right? And so we don't have a concentric ring from the center like you would in a, maybe a Midwest set town, or maybe like Denver might be. But what we have is we have spread out nodes of the concentrations of these demographics and income characteristics across the entirety of California and urban areas. And then, for the example of Los Angeles or Los Angeles County, Orange County, we have that same spread. And so our practice is we go find those locations, we find these nodes, and we look for properties that are, in these nodes, again, because we know that that's where our tenant base already lives, where those income demographics are coherent. It also happens strategically to work well because those happen to be places where land is less expensive and where the entitlement process is simpler, and that the neighborhoods welcome the development of these sites, because generally we'll find a vacant site that's underutilized and even an attractive nuisance. And in fact, when we build, we're so grateful that you're developing this site next to our property, because it's been a real problem for us, and you will now make that problem go away, right? The attractive nuisance disappears. And by the way, where can I get an application to rent one of these units? Like that's the very typical story of our interaction with the neighborhoods. Now, think about the contrast in California. As you go to develop an infill project in Venice, and half of the community of Venice comes out to fight your project because they just don't want it there. In the neighborhoods that we develop in, it's generally the opposite. They're like, we're so glad you're here. Now, there's a characteristic of how we choose the sites. We happen to only buy sites that already have the correct zoning in place as a standard practice. That's not to say we'll never do entitlement work, rezoning, or general plan, but that's never our preference. And so the lower land costs, the neighborhood welcoming, the by right zoning are some of the fundamental tenets of the reduction of complexity in the model that helps us generate we can keep the rents at the attainable category of these middle income rents and incomes, while also producing a yield, right? The 5-bedroom, 4-bath and the gross rents that hold all the rents that come with that also are part of that economic, yield generation story. But this is a model that is made up of multiple components that help us generate the yield, and more often than not, that's a reduction of complexity in the development process that help us basically keep costs efficient, time period shorter, and also allow us to deliver units into these, neighborhoods at a rate that a family of 6 or 10 can afford naturally. In fact, we call it naturally occurring moderate income, which means that we don't require government subsidy. We use private capital paired with workforce housing, and so we can balance the two together without having to have government subsidy, which is always in finite supply. There'll never be enough, and it's challenging, competitive to get it. And we can tap into what I consider to be an almost unlimited source of private capital that would be oriented to, of course, receiving yield on their invested capital, but also we have a social impact, social mission, social benefit story along with that.